from the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's 10 Talk.
It's time for FLA Law, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
Good evening. This is Attorney Matthew Noyes, and I'm one of the partners at the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. We have proudly provided this show for over a year now. It's FLA Law on the radio. We are here live to answer any legal questions that you may have. Our firm, Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, is the oldest personal injury law firm in Tampa Bay. We have been helping people after auto accidents, slip and falls, work comp injuries, and even Social Security disability cases since 1955. We are just about to hit our 70-year anniversary, and we are here because we enjoy helping people. And so FLA Law was just another way to help people. This is a live call-in show, so please, if you have questions, legal questions, this is the time to talk to an attorney without any worry about paying for an attorney or any concern about having to travel to see an attorney. If you're not comfortable calling at 727-441-3000, you can find us on the Facebook page, and it's Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers, and we're live streaming our show. And if you jump on there, you will see that I am blessed to have a wonderful guest. Michelle Perez is here. She's an attorney that specializes in immigration law. Michelle, thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Michelle's going to be here to answer questions that you have regarding immigration law and other areas of law that she does. I have known Michelle for a long time. Michelle was, before becoming a member of our legal community and a fellow lawyer, she was a receptionist at our office. And so we have seen Michelle grow and blossom into the fine immigration attorney that she is. In fact, she is a partner in her own firm.
Yes.
So, Michelle, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your firm, a little bit about you too, all right? And what areas of law that you can address for them this evening.
Yeah. So me and my business partner, we started our own immigration firm back in January, and it's Saavedra and Perez Law. We are an immigration-based firm, which means that we handle immigration, specifically when it comes to undocumented people in the United States. But we do handle T visas, U visas, VAWAs, basically humanitarian relief, family petitions, if residents are seeking help in citizenship, obtaining their citizenship, or if any person in the United States finds themselves in deportation proceedings in front of an immigration court, we also help those. I also like to tell people there's two parts to immigration. There is the humanitarian family-based, which is what I do, and then there's the business immigration, which is not what I do.
I don't blame you on that.
No, you either have to know one side or the other. It's too much to learn it all.
Well, and what I like about it, and on your website, you even say that you understand the hopes, dreams, and challenges that come with navigating the complexity of immigration law. And That's really what people need. They need somebody who understands their challenges and their hopes and their dreams. And you fully understand that because you have lived this situation with your dad, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, something big happened this week.
Yes.
So why don't you tell our listeners, what you have done really was what got you into immigration law.
Yeah.
And what happened this week.
Yeah. So this week, my dad, I went to a citizenship interview with my dad yesterday.
Wow.
I am a daughter of immigrants. My parents are both from Dominican Republic. They came here when they were very young. with their residency. And my mom just got her citizenship maybe 6 years ago after I became an attorney because I forced her to. And she wanted it. She just didn't know how to do it. She didn't know the benefits of becoming a citizen until she was stuck in Dominican Republic for about a month because of her passport not matching her driver's license.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she actually did get stuck, and it was because of the Dominican Republic. It was their government that was prohibiting her from going on the airplane, saying, no, it's going to be an issue. You can't go back. We're not going to allow you on the plane. And so she was stuck in Dominican Republic trying to fix her Dominican passport so that it read the same as her driver's license and her married name. And so when she came back, she was like, that's it. I'm done with the Dominican Republic. I want to become a citizen. And then I told her, I'm like, also, there's a lot of benefits to becoming a citizen. You don't have to worry about immigration or any potential deportation, no matter what.
Spending a month in the Dominican when you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. You have almost like I don't want to say a VIP, but almost like a VIP status because you have the U.S. consulate to go to if there was any issues with you being stuck in another country. You're a citizen, so they would help you out. But yeah, the big thing that happened yesterday was my dad. We went to his citizenship interview, and luckily he passed. There's just some formalities on getting some more documents that they want, but he should be good. And within the next couple of weeks, he should be sworn in.
Wow, that's wonderful. Wonderful. I've seen a few swear-in ceremonies, and it's really cool. So how long of a process was it for your dad?
Oh, my dad had issues when he was younger. We counted the arrests before going to citizenship, and he's fine with this. He knows that his story is going to be all over social media because
thanks to you,
thanks to me. And he's like, okay, I'll let you tell my story. He's embarrassed by it because it happened when he was in, the 1974 to 1976, a bunch of arrests that he was like 18, 19, 20 years old. Didn't have a great group of friends and was raised by a single mother and didn't have that father figure, to kind of guide him.
And that happened when he was here?
When he was here, he was in the U.S. Because he's been here since he was 10 and he's never left since then. And so he got into trouble and he had 10 arrests during a 3-year period. And
she knows that because she had to know all that for yesterday's hearing.
Yes, I had to know very specifically. So because of his arrests, I told him if he ever tried to travel outside, he would be in the deportation proceedings. They would place him in deportation proceedings, and potentially he would be mandatory detention, which means that he wouldn't be eligible for bond. He would be detained. And it's not like my dad killed somebody. There was attempted robbery. Right. I can tell this stuff because he allowed me to. But there was attempt.
It's not attorney-client privilege.
No, there's no attorney-client privilege.
Dad-daughter privilege.
Yes. And so there were deportable offenses. They weren't so severe where he would be deported unless he continued to do it throughout his life, right? If he didn't rehabilitate, he would have been deported, right? It's I tell every client, immigration is very discretionary. It really depends on the judge, the officer, and what you have to show for yourself. Like, what life did you produce here in the United States? So my dad obviously rehabilitated after 1976. Right. And so that was a great factor for him. So we had to seek a waiver. We can preemptively seek a waiver so that he didn't get placed into deportation proceedings. And that was granted last year. Okay. And so with that, he was eligible to apply for citizenship, and he really wants to travel. And my mom won't allow him to travel on the Dominican Republic passport. She says, no, I got stuck. You're going to get stuck. And she was like, no. We have to wait until you become a citizen. And so very close now, he should, God willing.
He had a strong likelihood that if he did go to the Dominican, with his past, although it was even in 1970s, that he could have not been allowed to come back to the United States, even though he was here for decades.
Right. Exactly.
So that's the risk that you have of not going through the process and becoming a citizen.
Right. Exactly.
Good. Well, what I also like about your firm, and you're proud, and you should be proud about it, is that it's women-owned.
Yes.
And immigrant-owned.
Yes.
So why don't you tell a little bit about your partner? We know you're a woman, and we know that you're a daughter of immigrants.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I love working with my partner, Isabel Saavedra. We always tell each other she's like the yin to my yang. Like, we just fit together. She has amazing strengths in certain areas, and I have amazing strengths in those other areas. So like, we fit together perfectly. But she was undocumented for 10 years. And she didn't gain her residency until she was about 20 years old.
Oh.
So she feels that uncertainty, even as an adult. She was there 18, 19, 20 years old without status. During that time, DACA wasn't out. It was talked about, but DACA wasn't available for her. So she was like, okay, do I have to wait for DACA? Which we know right now, it's just temporary.
Why don't you tell our listeners what DACA means? So
DACA is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And you have to have certain requirements. You have to have been here before a certain year. I believe that's like 2007. They're not doing DACA anymore. Trump stopped DACA during his term. You can only get renewals based on DACA, but you have to have certain requirements, good moral character. You have to have graduated from high school, show a diploma or a GED, and you have to have been here before 2007 in order to get DACA. And so we have a lot of what they call dreamers here in the United States, but it's only a temporary status. It is not residency. There is no path to citizenship. It is just, here's proof that we allow you to stay here, defer your removal from the United States, and we'll give you a work permit. But there's no path right now until Biden made the announcement. So we're still waiting. Biden made an announcement last month about a potential path for DACA recipients, dreamers, to potentially get a special visa, H-1B visa, so that they could potentially get residency and then citizenship. We're still waiting on the legalities of it, the federal regulations to come out in August, September, to see exactly what the instructions are and who qualifies and who doesn't.
So you can't even, right now, DACA can't even get a visa.
No.
They're just here because they have permission to be here.
Right.
And so that means they could be deported if they... Yeah. Someone decides to deport them.
Yeah. Okay. I've had potential clients that get DUIs that immigration decides they won't renew their DACA because of a DUI.
Wow. Yeah. And then other times the DUI won't do it. So it's so uncertain.
Yep. It's very discretionary.
And so that must have been very hard for your partner. Mm-hmm. And so she worked her way through it, and she got her citizenship.
She got her residency at 20 through an old petition from her father. Her father was petitioned before 2001. There's this grandfathered law that if there was an old approvable petition filed before April 21st, 2001, you were able to grandfather that petition in, apply for residency, and any beneficiaries underneath that petition would qualify. So she was lucky, because if she would have turned 21, she was no longer become a beneficiary. It's only children under 21.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was almost cut off.
That's very helpful, and I'm sure that our listeners appreciate that they appreciate that you have a wealth of knowledge over the immigration process and such. So we encourage our listeners, if you have a question, call us on the law line at 727-441-3000. Michelle Perez is here to answer any questions you have regarding immigration law. And me, Matthew Noyes, I'm here. I can answer any questions you have regarding our areas of law, which is personal injury, workers' comp, and even Social Security disability. So this is the time. We're here live from 5 until 6 every Tuesday. And so give us a call. on the law line at 727-441-3000. Just to give a little forecast of what this next 40 minutes is going to be, we are going to give a little quiz to our listeners. Michelle has blessed us as a prior guest, and we've always talked about what your dad eventually is going to have to do, and it's going to have to take the citizen test.
He took it yesterday. Yeah,
right,
he
so
passed.
That's part of it. So he had to take the USA citizen test, and know a lot about American history.
Yep.
Right. How many questions is on that test?
There's 100 questions.
Okay. Yeah.
He doesn't want me to tell you this, but because he's over 65 and he's been a resident for more than 20 years, he gets a condensed 20 question version. So I'm like, Dad, you only have 20 questions. You better nail every single answer.
Yeah. And so later on in the show, I do have questions that are on that test. And so we're going to test our listeners and see if they could take the U.S. citizens test, even if they are a citizen. So I think that would be helpful.
That would.
Yeah, but let's go back to immigration and your areas of law that you do. You talked about, that you do humanitarian relief, and you and your partner are truly the champions for immigrants in the Latino community.
Yes.
All across the country.
Yes.
And unlike me, I have my license to practice in Florida, but you can practice all throughout the country.
Yes.
Explain to our listeners why that is.
I love the fact that I can.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And how do you utilize it? I mean, your partner's in Virginia.
Yeah. I gave the immigration officer my business card yesterday, and she was like, Virginia? And I'm like, yes, but I'm here in Clearwater, so I have a satellite office. I got a new satellite office. Sorry, probably won't be using it, but they accept mail. So now I'm able to get like mail, and they have a conference room, and slowly I'll probably build into an office there.
Okay. That's in Clearwater, right?
In Clearwater, yeah. On McMullen Booth, so close.
And there's a large Latino community.
There
in Clearwater.
is, and there's a huge one in Clearwater.
I have some wonderful friends that are part of the Latino community in Clearwater.
Yeah,
they're wonderful people.
Yeah, but because I practice immigration is federal law. I'm able to. Because I have a license in Florida, I'm able to practice in any state because it is federal law. And so I have clients all over the East Coast, and even some in the West Coast as well, because immigration law is the same everywhere with a little bit of differentials depending on the circuit or the state that you're at, depending court-wise.
Yeah, and that's similar to our Social Security disability practice. We can help people from throughout the country because Social Security disability is federal as well.
Right.
Now, we mainly only do the Tampa Bay area because we like to meet and greet our clients and such. And I'm old school, so I like to do it. I like to do it in person as opposed to
Zoom. We use Zoom a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. So so you can help people throughout the country.
Yes.
And it's not just the Latino community. I mean, it can help any immigrant.
Any immigrant. Yes. They're all under the same umbrella.
Right. And so we talked about the humanitarian relief and the special visas under certain circumstances. Can you share a little bit more about, I know I think there's a special visa for trafficking. Why don't you tell our listeners about, the humanitarian relief, how they can get certain visas and what type of visas they can get if they need that kind of help.
Sure. Our popular one is a T visa. Not a lot of immigration attorneys do it because it is very complex, and you have to definitely keep up with the regulations that come out and just the decisions that come out on these T visas, because it's not something new, but new people are trying. And it's winning. T visa is trafficking. So if you are a victim of trafficking, it could be either labor trafficking, it could be domestic violence, it can be sex trafficking, which is like the human trafficking that we usually see, and it could also be smuggling turn trafficking. When you enter the United States, you're entering using a coyote or like a guide, and the situation turns into a trafficking event, and you're kidnapped in a sense and held hostage
by the
coyotes
or the group that they work with.
Yeah, and then we hear that a lot, and it doesn't matter how old it is. It's you still qualify for a T visa. So we've been doing a lot of those type of cases, especially because a lot of clients don't know that they qualify until they talk to us, and we go down the history of their immigration history, how they came, what kind of situations they've been in since they've entered the United States. And a lot of these people have been trafficked and they don't even realize it.
And I mean, if you watch the news or if you're just not into the politics of immigration as much, and it could be easily assumed that these people sneak across the southern border with a coyote and then they live this wonderful life of free healthcare, free food, free cell phone, and all that. Why don't you tell our listeners, you've lived it.
Yeah.
You've talked to people. You've helped people with their T visas that have gone through that. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about, what really happens to these people?
Yeah. So the majority of these people live in fear because they don't have status. So there's a fear that a police officer or any random person can call ICE on them and get them deported. But they can't apply for healthcare. They can't apply for the healthcare marketplace under Obama because they don't have status. And you have to prove that you have status or have pending application for residency. So if you don't have that, you can't apply for that. You can't apply for food stamps. You can't apply for any government assistance unless you show that you have some sort of status. The only way that they can get assistance like food stamps is if they have a U.S. citizen child that was born here in the United States, and the government is providing that assistance for that child, not for that parent.
Okay. Yeah. And then we also hear about cell phones and such like that, but that cell phones is really for tracking purposes as well. Isn't that correct? The government wants to track who's coming in.
Oh, yeah. That these cell phones that are given only obviously for those that have been caught by immigration or been detained are for tracking purposes. And it's more beneficial for the community to feel a sort of a safeguard because these phones are specifically for keeping like a GPS tracker on them. And a lot of people also have ankle monitors.
I was going to ask you that. Do some of them have the ankle monitors as well?
They do.
Okay.
And so, and there's reporting that needs to be done depending on your situation. I have clients that are calling in every month into immigration saying, yes, I'm here and I'm still at this address and whatnot. And I have others that have to physically go in every 6 months, like a probation office, and get, checked in, and their fingerprints are, what do you call it?
Reported, documented.
Yeah, their fingerprints are run to see if there's any arrests that happened in the last 6 months or the last year. So the government has a very tight leash on anybody that they've caught. So it's not like they're going free.
Do they do DNA samples? Do you
DNA,
know
no.
No. Okay.
No.
I mean, you
that would be severe.
Well, I mean, it's just spitting into a cup or something,
okay.
So, I guess, I mean, I do personal injury. I don't do criminal law. So, but that's what I saw on TV.
Yeah.
So they are trying to be monitored the best. And those that sneak in, and we're talking about they live in fear. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're promised this great life, and then they get to the other side, and that's when the abuse really happens.
Yeah, the grass is not greener.
Right, and that abuse, and then they feel like they're stuck. I mean,
right.
You've heard stories, you've lived it with your clients of the type of abuse, or what they thought what they were promised, and what really happened to them once they got here. Can you explain just some stories about what you have heard that these people have to go through, and then how you can help them?
Right. It's called the Cinderella story. So it's when immigrants are outside and their family member calls and says, "Hey, you should come here. There's great job opportunities. I have one for you. Just come through and I'll help you out. It's great here." They come in and it turns into a trafficking incident. So they're like, "Okay, you're here and I brought you here, so you should be grateful. Now you're going to work for me, or you're going to work here, or you're going to take care of my children for free, and you're going to stay in this house. They provide housing. Oh, but you owe me this because I helped bring you in." And now they feel almost stuck because they are under someone else's control and they are not getting paid for the work that they're doing.
Right. And so that's what the TV said. You could,
Yes.
if that situation is happening, then they could come to you.
Yes.
And explain the abuse that they're going through. And why don't you tell us, what process they go through? You apply for a T visa,
Right.
and then what do you have to do once you do the application?
So with us, we recommend we put you into a special therapy called TVAP, and that is a therapy specifically for trafficking victims. You have to go for at least 12 months is what we recommend, so that immigration can see that you have suffered mentally from the trauma that you experienced when you were trafficked. And so that you can show them that it severely impacted you. Because sometimes, clients don't want to talk to us. We need to get those therapy letters from the therapists. So it takes about 3 months for us to put together your package. We go through questionnaires, getting into the details of the trafficking incident, and we write declarations on behalf of our clients. We review those declarations with our clients to make sure all the information is correct. There's forms, there's documents, any supplemental documents that would help prove your case, we also help get. And they would have to agree to, if one of the departments or the FBI wants to investigate the trafficking incident, they have to agree that they would help in the investigation. So we tell all our clients this, like, you have to go to therapy. You have to help if the FBI or one of these Department of Labor calls you and wants to investigate this trafficking incident. And if you say no, then we can't take your case.
Right.
Yeah. And so once it's submitted, right now, the turnaround time, the adjudication time is about 18 months.
Okay.
Once you get approved, you get a work permit and you get that visa for 3 years. After 3 years, you can apply for residency.
Okay. And then after residency?
Then after 5 years, you can apply for citizenship.
All right. Very good. Very good. So there is a path,
Yes.
I see on your website, you said, by your side at every step, fighting fearlessly for your rights to a life without limits.
Yes.
And really, the life without limits is that citizenship you're talking about.
Yes.
Because without citizenship, your mom went through it.
Yep.
Your dad could have gone through it if he left the country.
Thank God his daughter went to law school and did immigration.
Yes. But other people, the limit that they have is the fear,
right,
of being caught or being under somebody's control and such.
Or
like that.
not working where they want to, or not working, not getting paid sufficiently because they are working under the table. So there's no, labor union or any kind of department that's monitoring that employer to make sure that they're providing sufficient pay to that employee because they're under the table.
And it doesn't help the general public either, because those are taxes that the employer's not paying into the system,
Right.
and that the worker's not paying into the system.
The workers actually pay.
Oh, do they?
They workers get an ITIN number, ITIN number, and a lot of the immigrant community understands that paying taxes is the number one priority. So they get an ITN number and they report their income and actually pay taxes on the income that they report.
Something new.
Yeah.
So they report it even if the employer's not reporting the income. I would see that they would get the employer in trouble.
Yep.
And which then leads to less job security or job insecurity.
Right.
And so that's even more of a challenge for them. That's the that's the limitation that they have if they don't go through the process correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and you also talked about, the people that come into the country, that suffer through domestic violence, or even are a victim of a crime or
Right.
witness a crime.
Right.
There's separate visas for that as well, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that, what that happens, domestic violence, and then I don't know if they're the same visa or not, but what happens if they're a witness to a crime or can assist in solving a crime?
Right. So for domestic violence victims, depending on your situation, you can either be a T visa applicant or you can be a VAWA applicant. VAWA. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Violence Against Women's Act, but it's not specifically for women. It's also for men. And this is when you have been abused by your U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident spouse, parent, or U.S. citizen child over 21. And the abuse doesn't have to be physical. It can be mental, financial, psychological abuse. And if it's sufficient for immigration, you can self-petition yourself through a VAWA application, and that would lead to residency if you qualify for residency. There's certain situations like good moral character. We have to look at your entries and exits from the United States. If you have multiple entries and exits, there might cause an issue there. There might be a bar for you to get residency, but you would get deferred action, which is similar to DACA applicants where they have deferred action, but there's a deferred action childhood arrivals. This would just be deferred action under VAWA, which would defer their removal from the United States, and they'd get a work permit, and they'd be able to stay here, with a work permit, not with residency or anything. But if you're eligible, which most of our VAWA clients are eligible for residency, then we also after the VAWA is approved, we apply for residency.
Okay. Now, you said that they can self-apply or self-petition. I think we talked in earlier shows that sometimes the applicant fills out the application incorrectly.
Right.
And is it too late for you to step in to fix it, or is there certain hurdles that you need to jump through if they misrepresent themselves either intentionally or unintentionally on an application?
Yeah, so I would never recommend that a client does a petition by themselves and submits it to USCIS, to immigration. And the only reason is that you don't necessarily know what they're looking for, especially if you're undocumented because you just flagged yourself that you're here. When I meant self-petition for VAWA, I meant that you didn't need your U.S. citizen spouse or that to petition for you.
Okay.
So it was a self-petition or like an auto petition. So you didn't need the spouse because the spouse was abusing you.
Right.
Where in a normal marriage situation, the U.S. citizen spouse actually signs off and petitions for you and says that they will financially provide for you and all this good stuff.
That's the family-based petitions and citizens I was going to get to.
Yes, that's the one.
All right.
That's the one.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that you're dealing with the federal government.
Yes.
You want to make sure you do that, and they have attorneys looking out for them.
Right.
And so I think it's important that any undocumented immigrant or any person trying to get a visa or residency or citizenship talks to an attorney like you.
Right.
All right. Which leads me right there. Michelle, this is Michelle Perez. She is an immigration attorney here in Clearwater, but she has offices throughout the whole country. Her partner's up in Virginia. But Michelle, how could our listeners, if you're not here on FLA Law on the radio, how can they get in touch with you tomorrow if they have questions regarding immigration?
Yeah, so you can call our offices, 571-583-0791.
Oh, she's got it. I said the last time we were here, it was a brand new number, so that's pretty good.
No, I got it. Now it's memorized.
There you go.
Our website is launching in a few days.
Okay.
SaavedraPerezLaw.com.
I did say, it's all some of it, though.
Yeah.
So
That's the landing page, but it's coming in full blast in a couple of days. So you'll be able to see everything, testimonials, all about us, like more pictures of me and Isabel. We've taken a lot of pictures in the last 6 months, I feel like, but a lot of more pictures. You can meet all our team on our website. So
That's
I'm
wonderful.
really excited about our website launching in a couple of days.
What's the website, the address?
SaavedraPerezLaw.com.
All right, it's spelled
Saavedra Perez, Perez, law, law.com.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And I think there's a contact information for that as well.
Yes.
And I know you are really up there with social media and everything too. So.
I have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
And they can type it probably Michelle Perez, immigration attorney. And
yes, they can.
They can find you on there.
They can find me on the Florida Bar.
Yeah, that's
website.
true too. Yeah, that's the way to do it. All right. Well, again, this is FLA Law on the radio. I am Matthew Noyes. I'm one of the partners at the law firm of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. We are the oldest personal injury law firm in Tampa Bay. We have been helping people since 1955 after them being injured in car accidents and other personal injury matters. But we also like to give back to the community, and that's why we do this show every Tuesday from 5 until 6. We like to be available for you if you have any questions regarding the law. As we said, we are personal injury attorneys, but each week we have special guests, and Michelle Perez is my special guest this week, and she's an immigration attorney, and so she can be here to answer questions you have on immigration law. And if you have a question that does not have to do with personal injury or immigration, I think Michelle and I can put our heads together and we can at least give you at least some information to guide you to get to where you need to go to get that answer. So the law line is 727-441-3000. We have about 18 minutes left in this week's episode, so give us a call if you do have any questions. But as Michelle, as we were talking about, what you do humanitarian relief, but you also do family-based petitions and citizenship.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our listeners, what does that incorporate?
So family-based petitions are if you are a U.S. citizen, and some lawful permanent residents can petition for their families outside the United States, or maybe they're here already, they got married, and maybe it's a undocumented individual that they got married to, or they got married to maybe a person that came in on a tourist visa. They found love and they got married.
Welcome to Clearwater Beach.
Yes, there's so many lovebirds. But that is a family-based petition. And so with family-based petitions, especially with marriages, it could get intense because there's a lot of fraud in marriages.
I was going to ask you, what do they do to try to prevent that kind of fraud? I mean, how do they look at the marriage and such like that?
There's a lot of red flags for them. So age difference is a huge red flag. If you have a 30 gap, if you don't have any financials together, like cohabitating, your financial commingling your finances, that's a red flag.
Cohabiting would be a red flag too, I would think.
Very much.
I love you, but we're going to live away from each other.
Yes. No, you'd be surprised. I'm like, you don't live together? Okay, we got to fix that first. You definitely have to show that you reside in the same residence. And you also have to show that there was the intent during the the courtship that you want to be with this person for the rest of your life and not for immigration purposes. So you almost have to tell your love story and make it believable, right?
So the longer the courtship, the more believable it is.
Yeah.
So
the shorter, the more flags, right?
So if you go to Vegas and hit the wedding chapel, could be a problem.
Could be a problem.
Not necessarily, though. I mean, if they can establish
if you have
other
the right
things.
attorney, maybe not.
Yeah.
That can show that it was bona fide. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so that's if an American citizen is marrying an immigrant, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about another family member? What if I'm here and I want to bring my grandmother into the United States?
Right.
As a citizen, how does that work?
There's certain family members you as a U.S. citizen can bring in. Grandma is not one of them,
That's amazing.
I know.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
Parents are one.
Okay.
So you could bring your parent, and that would be considered an immediate relative. And then once that parent comes in, then they could petition for their parent.
Okay. So eventually grandma can come.
Eventually, it would be a trickle effect, and it would take a while. But you could do parent, you can do brother, sister, you can do spouse, you can do child, minor child, adult child, but it doesn't go beyond that. So there's no aunts, cousins.
Okay.
It's just spouse, children, parents, and siblings.
Do you have a lot of situations where somebody's here in the United States and their children are in another country?
Yes.
And they're trying to get them back?
Yes, I
Can't
do.
imagine. Wow.
I know. It's hard, especially when they're minors. And the parent has come here to try to provide a better life. So a lot of the stories that I hear is they leave their kids with their mothers or fathers. So the grandparents are raising these children in another country, and the parent came here just to financially try to provide a better life.
Like on a work visa or something like that?
On a work visa or undocumented, they come in and they try to work. And they find out it's not as glamorous as people think it is, and how easy it's not easy to get a job here, undocumented. And so, but it's the only way that they could financially provide for their families. Maybe it's gang infested in their home, and the government is unable or unwilling to protect them. Or maybe they just live in a poor neighborhood. They can't move from there financially. They can't. And there's no job opportunities around there. So that's another reason that a lot of people come through.
But an undocumented immigrant can't try to get a family-based petition.
No.
They have to first they have to first get their own visa.
Right.
Become documented, so to speak.
So a lot of our clients do have, or not a lot, but I would say some of our clients have minor children outside the United States. So when you do a visa, like a T visa or a U visa, you can put your kids as beneficiaries under that visa.
Oh, okay. So even if they're not here in the United States, if they get a T visa, then it can incorporate their children.
Yeah. So if it gets approved, then their kids get that T visa and they can bring them in. So it's really a family, like they can reunify their family, which is great.
I think that's what's most important.
Yeah.
You know, as a son of parents that had 11 children, family, and I have 2 kids and 2 wonderful, I should say great grandchildren, 2 wonderful grandchildren. Family is so important. And you too, you have beautiful daughters as well.
Yes, I have 3.
3, yes. And so they keep us young and tired.
And very tired.
Yeah. And you work out of your house a lot too, so it's even more of a challenge. So.
Yes, it's great because then if I can see that now that it's summer, I can just go into my living room and see my kids, or like eat lunch with them real quick and go back to work. But it's also like there's no barrier. Work life kind of blurred. The lines get blurred.
Oh, and I know your husband. He's a very patient man, but you have to balance that.
Yes. He's a very patient man, but he gives me those eyes like, Michelle, and I'm like, okay, I got it. I'm coming.
Does that influence you as an immigration attorney, as being a mother and a spouse?
Yeah, I feel the separation that a lot of these mothers have from their children if they're in another country. I feel like that my heart hurts for them. I'm like, I can't imagine like having, like, that's my last resort to leave my kids with, my mom. I trust my mom 100%, but in another country and be away from them for so long.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So you do good work trying to bring families back together and such like that. But there's another area of your practice that you do. It's also removal, defense, and appeals.
Yes.
Why don't you tell our listeners, and we got about 10 more minutes, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that? But listeners, if you do have questions, this is the time to call. 727-441-3000 is the hotline. It's Michelle Perez. She's educating us all on immigration law and all the things that she does to try to make our country better with citizens that can benefit our country. So Why don't you talk about removal, defense, and appeals? What's a removal, first of all?
Right.
And then how do you jump in?
Removal defense basically means that an undocumented or a resident of the United States is being placed in deportation proceedings in front of an immigration judge in an immigration court. So you are not afforded an attorney during those court proceedings. So you're either going solo, you're getting a pro bono clinic to help you, or you're paying for a private attorney.
You don't have right to counsel.
You don't have right to counsel.
Wow. And it's because you're not a citizen.
It's because it's administrative court and it's not criminal.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no right to counsel there.
Okay.
And so that's where we come to play, right? So there's courts all around the country, and we can represent anybody in any court, on any immigration court around the country. The closest one to us here in Clearwater is Orlando. And then there's a couple in Miami, but I help in those proceedings. So I help figure out what kind of relief that client may be eligible for. And then I can help them with that relief, apply in front of the judge or outside of the judge, or tell the judge, hey, you don't have jurisdiction over this case, but he is eligible for whatever other humanitarian relief or anything that maybe the Department of Homeland Security has jurisdiction over. So let us close this case. Don't try to deport him, and let's continue applying outside of the court. So it just really depends on the client's situation and what they need, but you can be placed in deportation proceedings for a lot of reasons.
Why? I mean, there's clearly some obvious reasons why somebody would try to be in deportation or removal proceedings. We see those on the TV all the time.
Right.
But there's other situations that may be less significant. I shouldn't say that, probably not the right word to say, but less impact on society. But you see that a lot. What types of things can put an undocumented immigrant in deportation?
The moment that they get noticed by ICE or immigration officials, they will be placed into deportation proceedings. It's not an if, when, but they will be placed. If they don't have any sort of relief, or they're not applying for relief, then there's more of a certainty that they will be placed in deportation proceedings. So this will help the public. If an undocumented person comes across ICE or immigration officials, they'll be placed in deportation proceedings. Now, what's more surprising to a lot of people that don't know much about immigration is lawful permanent residents can be placed into deportation proceedings.
I heard you say that, and I was surprised.
Yeah.
When would a lawful resident be put into deportation?
So my dad could have easily been placed in deportation proceedings. Any lawful permanent resident that has maybe a criminal history, and it could be criminal history that it happened 20, 30 years ago when they were young and dumb. And it could be small things like little fraud offenses, shoplifting. And if they have a certain amount, 2 or more of these what they would consider fraud offenses for immigration, they can be placed into deportation proceedings whenever immigration flags them for whatever reason.
And so I have seen situations, since we do a lot of car accident cases, I've seen, undocumented immigrants driving on a fake driver's license or no driver's license whatsoever. That can spark, if they get pulled over for a broken taillight, that can spark a deportation.
Yep.
What's the process to deportation? How long does it take?
Oh, it takes.
And then they get shipped off to their country once it's finalized. Is that right?
Right. So it could take years depending on the court. So if they get stopped by a police officer, like our local police officers, that officer has the opportunity to call immigration. Immigration will come and pick them up. They'll likely be detained. And we would have to ask for a bond from the immigration judge, and they'd be released. And these processes are taking probably 2 to 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
For everything depending on the situation. If it's clear cut, there's nothing we can do for you, that immigration judge would order them removed. And they have a certain amount of days to leave the country after their removal order unless they appeal for whatever reason that decision. But they do get monitored after the fact. So ICE immigration officials will keep track of them and make sure that they get on a plane. They won't physically do it because, I mean, I don't think that the tax, that'd be a lot of tax dollars to make sure every single person, but they do monitor these people, and then they make sure that they leave the country when they're supposed to.
Now, I did see on the news that there were airplanes full of undocumented immigrants being flown. Some were flown to China. And other places, Peru, I thought I saw something. So the government does board them up on a plane and send them out too.
Those are the detained clients that are not eligible for bond, or the judge has denied bond because maybe they're a flight risk.
Okay.
Or there's not, more if they're a flight risk, they don't give them bond.
Okay. And tell me about the appeals process. You jump in on the appeals process from time to time.
Yes. I actually love appeals.
And I think you told me about one that you really loved because the guy gave up. I think your client gave up all hope, and then you appealed it for him, and then he saw peace.
Right.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that one?
Right. So sometimes immigration, or I would say a lot of times immigration gets it wrong. I mean, that's my opinion, right, as an immigration attorney. But we have the opportunity to appeal those decisions. So we can appeal it with the courts if the decision came from a judge, or we appeal it with the higher courts of the immigration, USCIS, to the Administrative Appeals Office. And I recently had a client that had a VAWA claim denied because the immigration did not believe that he actually was in a valid marriage. And a lot of his story seems a little bit off, but then when you actually get to talk to him, you understand why it was off. There was a lot of control in that relationship. And so there wasn't a lot of documents that he could provide to show the bona fide relationship. And he did have a loss of hope, but we won his appeal within 30 days.
That's wonderful. And he was looking at being deported to his home country.
Right.
Good job. Good job. Well, I did say we were going to do the citizenship test, but we are running out of time. So, Michelle, that just means that you have to come back another time.
Absolutely.
And we'll ask our listeners to take the citizens test with us. I do thank you for coming in this week. Again, why don't you tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you if you're not here sitting in the radio station with me, if they have questions regarding immigration law.
So our phone number is 571-583-0791. Our website is Saavedra Perez Law, Saavedra Perez, Perez law.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
And they can just really Google Michelle Perez, immigration attorney.
We're on Google.
There's two L's in Michelle.
There's two L's in Michelle.
I have one. I have my sister who's Michelle, who only has one L.
That's right.
So yes. So if you have questions regarding immigration, or if you have friends that have questions regarding immigration, please contact Michelle. She has given time this evening and many times to help answer questions. If you have questions regarding personal injury, give us a call at Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes at 727-796-8282. In the meantime, I'll talk to you next week. But in the meantime, please drive safely and watch out for those who don't. Take care. Good night.